Hello everyone. Created for More Facebook group. I'm so excited that you're here. Sorry for the delay. Thank you for being patient with me. Facebook would not let my camera connect, so I had to troubleshoot that, but I think we are good now. So, welcome to day one of the Budget Mastery Bootcamp. So excited to kick this off today with each of you. We will be diving into some really good and really deep stuff, so get ready. Whether you're married or not, you're going to get some key takeaways in how you relate to money with your God-given natural tendencies. What's helping you, what's holding you back. Hey Sarah, hey Anna, so glad you're both here. Good to see you and meet you. But today should be really fun and eye-opening and give you some aha moments, and it's going to be a big part of setting you up for what likely has not worked for you in the past when it comes to budgeting. So, if you haven't met me yet, I'm Heather Oinas. I'm a money coach. I am super passionate about helping Christian couples and business owners take the stress out of the money stuff and trade the chaos for order and peace. So many of you are here today because you're tired of that stress hanging over your head regarding money. And if you're married, also that causes a lot of stress in your marriage. So whether you're arguing about money, whether you avoid the topic completely, or really if you're anywhere in between, I want you to know you're in the right place. This event is called the Budget Mastery Bootcamp. So we're absolutely going to talk about that B word. And to some of you, it's very dreaded. Hey, Rachel, good to see you here. But before we dive into the dreaded B word of budgeting, I just want you to know that there's so much that goes into that actually has nothing to do with the numbers. So before we really even start talking about budgeting this week, first, you're going to learn things that are preventing you from mastering your budget to begin with. Things that you've likely never thought about before. And these are things that when you do take the time to deal with them on the front end before you begin budgeting, then budgeting just gets so much easier and simpler, especially if you're married. Hey, Molly. No worries, Molly. I was late too to my own event, so you're good. Facebook was giving me some problems. So on the topic of marriage, Molly, you popped in at the right time. Before I go on, I know that some of you may be single, and you asked me, Heather, is this going to help me? Is the Budget Mastery Bootcamp for the Christian spouse going to help me? And the answer is yes. It will help you to see your own tendencies regarding money, how they're helping you in your own financial stewardship journey, and how they're keeping you from getting you to where you want to be. This is so important, and so many people miss this and don't take the time to really think through it. So whether you're single, married, engaged, widowed, whatever it is, whatever your situation is today, I want you to just seek the Lord in all of this. Take what He leads to you. Let the Holy Spirit work in you regarding this information. And I know that He has something to give each of you today through this. So another question that came up was, what if I am married, but I'm the only one interested in doing this? My spouse has no interest in participating. And let me tell you, you're in the right place. There's numerous wives that I've coached where the husbands have not been a part. And most recently, I even started working with a husband and the wife was not participating in coaching. And let me tell you, they are still getting amazing results in managing their finances themselves, but also in their marriage. They're bringing their spouses in as they can, not in the coaching session, but on the side as we talk through a lot of the things that I'm going to talk to you about today and through the rest of this challenge. So just know that positive financial change really starts with one, and be excited about that, okay? It starts with you. So, and then of course, if both of you are participating today, husband and wife, or if one of you is watching, one of you will watch later, that is awesome. You'll be able to discuss more freely. Those conversations will more easily flow. And I'm so proud of you for getting your spouse on board for both of you to do this. But either way, know that positive financial change really does start with just one. Now, my goal for you in this boot camp is for you to get so much value and make a huge difference for yourself as well as in your marriage. So on that note, let's get a couple of housekeeping things out of the way and then we'll dive in. Many of you have noticed that something's different about this challenge than the ones I've hosted before. I have a team member joining me, Christine Fernandez. She is going to be your accountability coach throughout this challenge. She is helping me and she is incredible. I'm so grateful to her. In the past, I have not been able to keep up with all of you participating, and it just kills me that I can't follow through and be there for each of you and support you the way that you need. So that is why she is on board with me now. And again, she will be serving as the accountability coach because we all know doing the work is what matters. And I want to get you the value out of this. So yes, thank you, Christina. If you get a message from her, Christine, it's actually Christine. If you get a message from Christine Fernandez, know that that is the accountability coach for this challenge. You can accept her as your friend, message her. She is there for you. If she needs to refer you back to me for something, she will. You also all know how to get a hold of me, but definitely utilize her in this challenge and let her take you to the next level. Wherever you are now, the goal is to improve and to move to the next level that the Lord has for you. And she is here to be a part of that. So she's going to take great care of you. Also, exciting news. One of the participants in this challenge will win. Yay, Christine's here too. Thank you, Christine. One of the participants in this challenge will win a free one-on-one budget mastery review with me, your money coach. God has gifted me in this area, and I want to gift this to someone who is participating this week and just give you a ton of value in that so that you can really start off on the right foot with budgeting or tweak what you have wherever you are. I want to meet you there and give you a free one-on-one budget mastery review. So who's excited about that? Who would be interested in getting help in the area of budgeting? Yes, Molly. So how are you going to be entered for that? Simply by participating, by being here. All of you already that have said hi, that are commenting, you are going to get points toward the drawing for the budget mastery review. So you'll get, the more that you engage, the more that you share. There's going to be homework after each lesson. And so the more that you participate, essentially, the more entries you'll get toward that. And I'll do the little spin the wheel that everything is so fun now with the spinning the wheel and figuring out who wins. So I'll put you all in with your points and we'll see who wins that budget mastery review. So with that out of the way, housekeeping out of the way, who is ready to dive in? Let me see a hashtag live if you're here right now, which several of you are. Go ahead and comment. Let's bring some more people in by the more comments. And then, of course, if you're watching the replay, give me a hashtag replay. I want to be sure that I do know who's watching, and I really, really love interacting with my group members. So feel free to comment and engage, and I'm super excited to get to know you more through this. Now, as we dive in, I'm going to start with scripture because I love starting with God's word to share with you about how you are uniquely created by our Lord with certain natural tendencies regarding money. Molly, Sarah, Anna, Rachel, God has given you unique natural tendencies regarding money. Christine, and did I forget anybody? I think that's all I've seen so far. Brittany, hi Brittany, yes. And Brittany, God has given each of you unique money tendencies. And if you're married, He's also given unique money tendencies to your spouse. Those natural tendencies are not right or wrong. They are unique, and that's because God created you that way. In Psalm 139, 13 and 14, it says, "For you created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. How beautiful is that verse? And I know we don't usually think about that regarding how we think about money, but it absolutely applies in that, right? It's another aspect of stewardship. It's a very big aspect of stewardship of our lives and how we manage our money. And you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and God gave you unique tendencies around that. And actually, you don't just have one tendency, you have several. So get excited about that. Your natural tendencies are a good thing. I praise you, Lord, because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. So rejoice in that. Know that from the beginning. I know a lot of you are thinking, okay, I'm a spender. Sometimes I overspend. How is that a good thing? We're going to get into that. And there's other things about your natural tendencies that you might be wishing he didn't gift you with. But just know we're going to look at that and ask him and seek him in this to see what you can celebrate in that, okay? For example, if you're a natural spender, it's likely that you make life fun for the savers. Now, how do I know that? Because guess what I am? A saver. And my spender husband makes my life so much more fun. I experience more of life because of him. And we make more interesting and more fun memories with our boys. I have 3 boys, by the way. My oldest is 10 and my twins are 8. A little more about me. My husband and I have been married almost 18 years. But even though, or I shouldn't say even though, right? I should say because my husband is a spender, because God has given him that gift, he makes our lives more fun. We have done more things than I ever would have had us do. And it's been a blessing. It took me a while to realize that, but it has been a blessing. Now, the flip side of that is that my saver side, hey, Jessica, glad you could join us. And Christine as well, glad you could join us. We have 2 Christines. So the flip side of my husband's spender side, right, is that my saver side keeps our family financially secure, right? We have retirement savings. We have kids' college savings. We had a down payment when we bought our first home. And we were able to do those things. And my husband appreciates that now because I was able to set aside money for our future that benefited our family. And we talk about this often, so I'm not saying anything that he hasn't heard or that we haven't talked about. And he knows I talk about all these things to you in my group. But he knows that because of my diligence to make sure we have done those things, he's grateful for that because he knows it wouldn't have gotten done with just his spending side. He didn't learn that early enough in life on how to balance his spender side, right? So he would have spent everything that he's ever earned and probably more, right? So hopefully that gives you a glimpse into what we're talking about today and kind of gives you an idea. So let's see. Molly said, makes for interesting challenges to figure out ways to save, to have those fun spending moments. Yes, you're right. But that's where the budget comes in, right? We know that the things are taken care of now. We also start to plan ahead for the things that are coming. One of the things that we do, which I'll probably talk more about this on day 3, but we actually have a spontaneous travel fund. Now, it doesn't sound like if we're planning for it and saving regularly for it, that's very spontaneous, right? But in reality, it is spontaneous. We can choose to go wherever as long as the money's there and we don't have to stress about it. So it's super fun. And I would not have that there if my husband wasn't a spender and loved to just decide on Friday night that we're going to take a road trip this weekend. So again, that's how we've learned over the years to balance each other out and start to appreciate each other. Now, I've probably maybe made it sound a little too easy so far. Like, okay, Heather, it sounds like y'all are the perfect couple and everything works out great. No. And the ladies that know me pretty close, like Jessica, in the Money Savvy Sisters group, y'all know that it has not been that way always. And we do have our moments where, again, we have to come back to each other and say, okay, what's most important here? What are we doing? How does your strength come in? How does my strength come in? So know that it wasn't always this way. We took each of our tendencies more to the extreme early on in our marriage. And that's really where so many married couples struggle, I think. For whatever reason, opposites seem to attract. And when, as individuals, we haven't learned enough about our own tendencies and perspectives, and then married, we don't recognize the differences or the positives in our spouse. We don't realize there's those different perspectives at play. It causes married couples to pull apart instead of coming together on the same page. My husband and I still have to remind ourselves of what we're working toward together. We have to listen to the reasoning voice of the other, both sides, right? And have healthy conversations around money and gently remind each other when one takes it to extreme again. Now, we've had our arguments in the past. We have been not so gentle with each other, and we still sometimes aren't so gentle with each other. It's a process, right? It's all about communication. It's about figuring out how your husband responds to your spouse. I'm saying husband, everybody so far are ladies, and there are mostly ladies in this group, but husbands, if you're watching, same thing. You've got to learn to relate to your wife. Yes, Rachel, I love it. He's the budgeter all the way. Yes. So with that said, just a reminder that we are all wired differently. The Lord gives us each unique tendencies and perspectives. He gives that to you. He gives that to your spouse. And so even when our tendencies are different, they are good, given to you and your spouse by the Lord, and rejoice. Rejoice in both. I praise you, Lord, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Okay, so that's the first thing today, is to really focus on the strengths of how the Lord has gifted you and gifted your husband when it comes to managing money. And then the flip side of that is any good thing can be taken too far or too extreme, right? So we do have to have boundaries within our God-given tendencies. Boundaries are good. They free you from the stress and the guilt and the shame and everything, and help you get on the same page. And honestly, that's probably where a lot of the discord is caused in marriages. We don't have boundaries for ourselves. I had one person message me and say, well, my wife says it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission. Oh, y'all, that broke my heart. That broke my heart. Like, let's talk about this, okay? Let's get it out in the open. Let's set boundaries so that, yes, you spenders can spend, but your spouse doesn't have to stress over your spending. They know that you're in control. They know that you are working on the same team as them. And that's huge. That's going to be huge, okay? So we do have to set boundaries for ourselves individually and figure out how to work together, figure out how to bring out the best in each other, right? Instead of pulling apart. And if we don't set boundaries together, or if one of you doesn't work to figure out how to set those boundaries with your spouse, even if they don't necessarily know that that's exactly what you're doing, but in seeking to understand them better and communicate with them better, that's how you're going to get on the same page. Thank you, ladies, for sharing in the comments. That's helping me more around how to know what to talk about. And, oh, that sounds good, Molly. That sounds like a great Bible study. Yeah, thank you for sharing more about your husband, about you, and how you relate together, because that is going to help me cater this more to you in today and in the coming days. So we've talked about saver, we've talked about spender, how those two opposites attract, which it sounds like several of you are very, very familiar with. But there's other money tendencies as well. There's actually quite a few. We're not going to talk about all of them because we'd be here all day. But there's also experiences and perspectives that you have because of what you learned about money as you were growing up. So in your childhood, even up until now, we've been learning things about money our whole lives, right? But a lot of it that we learned in our childhood, we started choosing to make decisions based on that. And sometimes we haven't worked through that. Some of those things are good, right? And some of those things need to be shifted or improved upon to become more like Christ. So we could call those learned money tendencies. And I guess an example of that would be what we learned from our parents. We could possibly choose to imitate that, right? Or we could choose to do the opposite, Or we can meet somewhere in the middle and do something in between, because they took it to the extreme and you don't want to be like that, but you also don't want to be the complete opposite. So as you think about how your parents handled money, do you imitate them or do you do the opposite? And then have you ever talked about that? Have you ever talked about that with your spouse? How you grew up, what money was like in your household? Was it stressful? Was it calm? Was it a good experience, or did it make you fearful about money because you didn't feel like it was a healthy environment? Most of our parents did the best they could with what they had at the time and in how they raised us, just like we all do with our kids, right? We need so much grace when it comes to parenting. But those things do come into play as we get older and as we get married. And it's important to go back and to think about some of that, and just to understand how you're managing money based on that, and also how your spouse is managing money based on that. So I'm curious, have any of you talked about that with your spouse? Do you have a general idea of how they were raised versus how you were raised when it came to money? Was money even talked about in your home? It really wasn't talked about in mine. So there's a lot of things that I have to go back to and think through, like, why did my parents not talk about it? There wasn't a lot. There really wasn't a lot. We didn't have much. 4 kids. Only my dad worked, and he never went to college. Never figured out how to become a successful business owner either. And so it was a struggle. It was a struggle for my parents. Yeah, Sarah, so it was kept secret. They had fights about it. Yeah. And that's probably what happened with my parents. So I just thought they weren't talking about it, but they were probably talking about it in secret. Who knows? And just so y'all know, a part of my story too is that both of my parents have passed away. So my mom died when I was 23 and my dad when I was 32. And so a lot of that too, I'm still having to reconcile. And I have 3 brothers. And I'm like, okay, guys, tell me what you think about this. They hate my deep questions, but I'm like, tell me what you thought about this when we were growing up. I'm always trying to figure out the way mom and dad did things, just because I as we get older, we try to process things. So anyway, some of that's been good and some of that's been hard to work through, but it's all worth it when we work through it with the Lord. So let's see. Thank you for sharing, y'all. Thank you so much for sharing. This is great. This is great. Haha, I love that. But Jessica, you should talk a lot in the comments. Everybody wants to hear, how are you successful in that? Love it. And Jessica has come a long way. She is doing amazing, amazing, amazing. So, okay, so your parents could have argued about money, like we talked about. Maybe they kept it secret. So maybe you just don't want to talk about it. Maybe you want to keep the peace, right? Maybe instead you thought, oh, well, that's normal and I should do the same, because we end up coming to a solution at some point, right? And we make up, and so it's all good, which honestly, if you're arguing about it, that means you are talking about it. And I believe that is a good thing. But obviously, again, we need boundaries around our arguments, right? So that we don't take them to the extreme. That good actually comes from it, and not, not letting the thief come to steal, kill, and destroy. So, okay, so hopefully by now you're starting to see different childhood experiences, different ways that God wired us in the womb, different interpretations of things then versus now. Are you starting to see why? Number one, it could be a problem for you individually. Most of us probably think our way is the right way, or we're beating ourselves up because we can't seem to do it the right way, right? But then also in our marriage, it can be a huge problem in marriage just because of this dynamic. Yes, that's a good word, Sarah. Argue constructively. Okay, Nisha, I don't know if I'm saying that right. But yes, and Jessica used to be more of a spender than a saver. So she will have a lot to say about that, because when I first met them, she and her husband were both spenders, and I don't think she would have called herself a saver. So So yeah, know that when you learn to put that in balance, right, then you can start to figure out how to manage that in a successful way. So know that there's hope for you. Okay, Jessica, I'm so glad you're here. This is so good, and thank you for letting me share some of your story. And I see that you're sharing yours as well. So there's so many different examples of how this plays out, but obviously we don't have all day. So my hope is that as I'm talking and you're thinking and the Lord is leading, and I can tell He's working because of the comments, thank you all for sharing, that the Holy Spirit's just going to allow you to see things more clearly in how you yourself operate with money, but also with how your spouse operates with money. So I do want to give you the most important and most critical pieces to focus on and pay attention in your own life, and if you're married, in your own marriage. These are things to approach prayerfully, without guilt and without shame, and ideally without any negative emotions, which can be very difficult, but I want you to keep that in mind, because those things are not from the Lord. Those things are from the enemy, who wants to steal, kill, and destroy. And that's not why we're here. We're here to uplift, to encourage, to accept the challenge of becoming a better steward individually and also in our marriage. Christine, I love that. Y'all, 40th anniversary. 40th anniversary. I think, first of all, Christine, that's amazing. We all want to know your secret. And it sounds like one of them is to seek to find win-win solutions. And yes, and it can be hard to get to that point. So, and again, but again, it starts with one, right? I'd be curious to hear more of your story, Christine, but it really does start with one, and one person willing to be understanding, to work on communicating better, and work on growing closer and improving their marriage. So I love that. Thanks for sharing, Christine, and congrats on 40 coming up. So cool. So again, without guilt, without shame, without negative emotions, as we talk about some of these things, I want to invite you to tread with objectivity. I guess that's how I can say it. Just realize what the Lord is telling you to improve upon. No beating yourself up. Give yourself grace just as He gives you grace, and know that today is a new day just as He gives you grace over and over again. And then, now here's the tricky part for some, I guess for some of you, giving yourself grace is trickier, but also extend that grace to your spouse. We all know we can't change our spouse. If you're newly married or engaged, or you hope to be married one day, just know this up front. You cannot change your spouse. They have to do it themselves. We can pray for the Holy Spirit to work in them, of course, and we should be doing that. We absolutely get to do that, right? For them to make change for the good, but we ourselves cannot change them. And that's why we have to start with what we can change. We can only change ourselves. Yes, Molly, I know. I have that inner critic as well. That's the enemy lying to us, right? Telling us things that are not true, that God does not even for a second believe about us. But it can be hard to get past. So know that I'll be praying for you. And please know, do not beat yourself up. Renew your mind, become more Christ-like. He extends grace to you, extend grace to yourself. I cannot share that enough. Okay, so again, you can only change yourself. You can only work on yourself truly, and you can pray for your spouse, right? So no matter how many negative feelings, a lot of us, and I've been there, this is how I know. Like, how do I know these things? Because I've been dealing with these things in my own marriage over the past almost 18 years. We can focus on the negatives. We can focus on the negatives at all times. So Rachel, when I'm talking about the spouse, you might think about this for yourself too. Yes, the enemy is after you, because he knows if he can get a hold, if he knows that when the Lord gets a hold of a marriage and they both come together in financial stewardship and in stewardship of their lives, in alignment with each other, that they are unstoppable and they do so much good for the kingdom and for the Lord. So yes, it's definitely the enemy. I'm glad that you recognize that. Yes, keep working through that. And I need to share some scripture with. I'm gonna have to share some scripture with y'all later. And all of this is bringing up a lot, I know. And thank you again, guys. Thank you, ladies, for being so vulnerable. I know it's not always easy, but I'm grateful that you feel this is a safe place to share. So it's easy for us to focus on the negatives. It's easy for me to look at all the things my husband doesn't do and not at something that he does every day that I'm so grateful that he does, right? It's so easy for us to zone on the negatives. And what I'm hearing from y'all as well is the same thing for you. All the things that you do, or the thoughts that you think, the things that the Lord is doing in you, you're forgetting about that and you're only focusing on the negative. So I really, really want to challenge you to not do that. Okay, to don't zone in on the negative, but zone in on the positives, on what you can celebrate, and on what the Lord is doing through this. So no matter how many negative feelings you have about them, how they manage, that you have about your spouse or even yourself, how you manage money, how your spouse manages money, how you do things, how they do things, now is the time to set that aside and focus on what the Lord is doing in you and through you in the Holy Spirit, okay? And again, like God's been, especially as I prepared for this, God has been convicting me and working on me again that I'm focusing too much on the negatives in my husband. And I can tell you, when I quit focusing on that and I start focusing on the positives, that our marriage becomes better. He's all of a sudden a much better husband. Even though I don't think anything actually changed, except the fact that I realize the positive things that he is and that he does and who the Lord has created him to be as my husband, as my boy's father. So this is just something really yes, Sarah, I hear you. This is just something in general, that we need to realize that we can't just always focus on the negatives, and we can't listen to our inner critic. We got to realize, how does God see you? Is what you're thinking true? Is that how he sees you? So many times we see ourselves the way the enemy sees us, because the enemy wants us to not see ourselves as God sees us, right? Okay, so we still have a little bit to go, guys. Hang in there. Thank you for this. This is so good. But I will we're gonna try to keep moving now. So we talked about spinner and saver. We still have some other tendencies to talk about. But as we talk about these, I do want you to think about this. For your own unique tendencies, where are you taking it to the extreme? Not to beat yourself up, but to learn what might be harming you, what extremes might be harming you or hindering you from the life God has called you to. This is where you get to change, you get to improve, you get to seek the Lord for better stewardship. And you're going to be so surprised when you start to focus on changing yourself that your spouse may see it. And it's likely going to prove to be a very good thing for your marriage as well. And then, as you ladies have talked about, that you start to see the changes in yourself, right? And what the Lord is doing in you, that is a beautiful and powerful thing. So if you're married, as we go through these tendencies, again, I just want you to focus on the tendencies in your spouse that are actually strengths. There's always going to be negatives, and those are most likely the ones that we're seeing. And that might be all that you see right now. Just like in the beginning, I thought, why would my husband spend money on something so stupid, something so ridiculous? That money could be used for something so much better, right? That's how I was in the beginning of our marriage, before I realized that his spending actually had strengths as well. So don't focus on the negatives. Start to see the positives in each tendency that in the past you may have only seen as a negative. And can any of your spouse's tendencies actually help you balance out your extremes, right? What are some ways you can see how your spouse's tendencies are helpful? And so with that said, for those of you that are married, here's your scripture throughout this boot camp. Genesis 2:18. and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. Genesis 2:18. We're focusing on how to bring two people closer to one in Him, right? So focus on the things you can improve in yourself and the strengths of your spouse. Those are the two things that I want you to take home today, okay? Yourself and the strengths of your spouse. And that might even be recognizing God's grace for you, God's love for you, no matter the things that you're thinking of that are negative, right? That is a powerful, powerful thing. Okay, so let's dive into more of these tendencies. And as I share, I want to hear which one you lean toward and which one your spouse leans toward. Many of you have already shared whether you're the spender or the saver and what your husband is. So we already know what me and my husband are. So what about you? Well, some of you have already shared that. I'm trying to think I don't want to take too long in this either. So I'm just looking at my outline here. So one of the things I thought would give y'all a good laugh is my husband really prides himself in the way he dresses. And he really doesn't dress that nice, but he believes in a polo and jeans or polo and khaki shorts, like something that's nicer. He doesn't really do the t-shirt thing very often. Okay, I'm the total opposite. Put me in t-shirt and jeans any day. Okay, so it made me laugh when I realized that he helps us not portray ourselves as Texas rednecks in the way that we dress, or even keep our home appearance up because of my frugality and Saver's mindset. That can be a fault at times. Like if my boys are dressed this morning, one of my 8-year-olds put his soccer socks on with his play clothes. He pulled them all the way up, y'all, all the way up over his knees. They're practically going under his shorts. I did make him change them, mainly, actually, I shouldn't even say, I don't know that I would have made him change them on a normal day, but he was getting an award today at school this morning. So I thought, oh my goodness, he cannot go on stage with those socks like that. So I made him change into regular socks. But my frugality sometimes can be taken way too far. So even in the way we decorate our home, I'm like, oh, that's fine. It's good. We already have it. We don't need to buy anything else. It's like we don't have, maybe we don't have any furniture. We do have furniture, but maybe we don't have any furniture, but it's all good. People can sit on the floor, kumbaya. Anyway, so I just want to drive home that point where I've had to come to terms with the fact that my saving can be ridiculous, just like I think a lot of times his spending is ridiculous. So let's bring in another tendency, okay? Experiences versus things. And I hope this one really gets you excited even because it's actually really fun to talk about. So some of you will value life experiences more than material things, which is kind of true in my case because our living room is a wrestling arena, not a living room, because I have 3 boys and they're rolling around on the floor all the time. So our living room is more of an experience than a nice living room. But then there's those that value the material things more than experiences. So this is a great question to open up some communication when the timing's right with your spouse, even with your kids. If I gave you, and I want y'all to answer, if I gave you $100 that you had to spend, savers, you cannot save it, you have to spend it, what would you spend it on? Remember, there's no right or wrong. It's your personal preference, your values, your God-given tendency. $100, what would you spend it on? Sarah says food and cute stuff. I love it. I like spending money on food too. Love it, love it. So, and food is interesting because I do feel like it's more of an experience. Cute stuff is material. So you've got both sides there. I love it. Anna says books. Love it. Yep. And again, this is interesting because that could be both as well, right? An experience and a material thing, but it's really more of an experience to read. Molly says food. Rachel says date night. Yes, that's mine too. We don't get those often enough. Books, love it. High-end vinegar. Interesting, Christine. So how much does high-end vinegar cost? You got me curious now. See, we all have things that we value, and I love it. Love it. Now, when I asked my boys this, it was very interesting because two of my boys would probably buy about $100 worth of candy and some toys, and another would want some gaming bucks, some, the money that they can spend on things on their games. So to do things faster and better and get these characters or whatever. So, oh, Sarah, so okay, interesting to pull that out. Yeah. Wow, Christine, I had no idea. That's my Texas redneck coming out. I had no idea first of all, that there's 100-year-old aged balsamic, and that any vinegar would be more than $100. So that's very interesting. You've educated us all today, I think. But Sarah, I love the distinguishing between you're actually collecting them and you're not reading most of them. So that's interesting. Okay, I love this. I love how y'all are sharing. So everybody's going to answer that differently, right? And there's no right or wrong to that. And by the way, if you're in a place with your spouse where you can ask that and for them not to get defensive, that's the key, because some of you might be in a place where if you say, if I give you, they might get defensive about it, or they might feel like you're setting them up, or it just depends on where you're at in your marriage, right? So use discernment in this. But if you can ask your spouse that, that's going to give you great insight into what they value, right? Yeah, Jessica, I'm with you. So use this question to seek understanding in how you relate to money. You might have learned something new about yourself today in answering this, and then also in how your spouse relates to money, and use it not as judgment, but as just understanding and opening communication. Some of you that are in the habit of judging, I was there, so no judgment from me in this, and no pun intended. Your spouse might get defensive if you ask that. So again, use discernment, and maybe you just need to open the conversation as I'm asking this question, just in general, to start to understand more. You can blame it on me too. So my coach Heather told me that we could maybe open up a great conversation about money if we can talk about this. And I'm just asking in general, and I'm not going to judge you. And I just really want to know your actual answer. If I gave you $100 that you had to spend, what would you do with it? So when it's done right, this can open up better communication, better understanding in your marriage. Yes, Christine, you're absolutely right. But how many of us, when we are in our early 20s, most of us probably are going to start having these conversations. But yes, you're right. So important. If you are engaged right now, or if you hope to be married one day, learning this now is going to save you a lot of heartache in the future. And you can ask your kids too. I had fun asking my kids that, and I should have known. Candy and toys for the twins, and gaming bucks for the older one. Okay, so another tendency, security versus status. So some things make you feel more secure. They give you more peace of mind, like my emergency fund does for me. And that might even be if you are a budgeter and you feel like you're great, you could be great at it or pretty great at it. It's because budgeting lets you know the money is there, right? You're secure that everything's going to be taken care of. Your emergency fund lets you not have to worry. You value security, and that's a good thing, right? It's a good thing to be prepared. But again, it can be taken too far, right? We can start relying, and I have to be very careful of this, We can start relying on our money more than the Lord. And when God started nudging me out of, so I'm a pharmacist also, for those that don't know, by degree. I graduated when I was 24 as a pharmacist. And that was, I got out, made a really good income, and God slowly started nudging me out of pharmacy. That was hard for me. To give up that income. It was probably harder for my husband. He's a teacher. He works in the lowest paid school district in the area, which I'm grateful for. He makes such an impact on his fifth graders. But that security, that income security. I can take it too far. And so when we rely on money more than the Lord, that's where that extreme comes in. Just like in the Gospels, it talks about the man who wanted to build bigger barns to store everything and eat, drink, and be merry, right? It's not so much that the bigger barns probably were the problem, but it's how those were serving him, right? He's serving himself. He lost sight of the Lord. He was only focused on himself. And we can have an unrealistic need to feel secure, or we can be doing that out of fear, right? Out of fear that God's not going to provide. That's where I struggle. But Philippians 4:19, our God supplies all our needs. My God supplies all my needs. That's one I remind myself of all the time. And it shows up in so many different ways, not just with money, but definitely with provision and what he gives us as money to be able to live, right? So we've got to recognize the extreme of security, right? The Bible does tell us to save, so it's not that we shouldn't save at all. We're not flying by the seat of our pants our whole life, but there's an extreme. Now, the opposite of the security tendency is status. So if you are more naturally leaning towards status side, then money can represent personal achievement. So it's like a measure of success. The positive side of that is when you use money for good, giving, managing wealth responsibly. Maybe you have a nice home and you open your doors to others. Many have been fed, even led to Christ in your home, and they feel loved. You build them up. You're using the environment of your nice home to do so. Your character is more important than your money. That's the good, godly side of status, right? That's a healthy side of status. Molly, you beat me to that phrase. Oh, Anna, I'd love to hear more about that. Feel free to message me kind of more of your story. Yes. Christine, thank you for sharing some awesome ways into this. Yeah, I could do a whole live on communication and marriage. So yeah, there's just so many aspects of it though, depending on where people are. And that's why I love one-on-one coaching, by the way, because I get to meet couples where they are, and we get to fill in the gaps. They get to learn about each other, and I can draw things out of them in a non-defensive space as a third party that they weren't able to draw out themselves. So, okay, so we talked about the healthy side of status, but if it's taken too far, like Molly said, you have the home or the nice car, or you're just showing it off to impress people. Again, it's kind of more about the motives, I guess. You're keeping up with the Joneses simply to keep up with them. That's an extreme, right? That's another extreme. So what's your natural tendencies, security or status? Again, there's positives of both. It's just good to recognize and start to learn, and then let the Lord lead in how you might be taking it too far. And then what about, yes, the Joneses are broke. They are. They're living, they might look like they have it all together, but they miss a paycheck and they are very, very stressed. So yes, I am more of a security too. But again, I have to be careful. I have to be careful not to let that get taken to the extreme. So there's actually quite a few more, believe it or not, God-given tendencies, but that's good for now. We're pretty far into this by now. So my goal today is simply to help you understand those different perspectives, those different tendencies, celebrate the strengths of yours, right? And celebrate the strengths of your spouse. And then also start to recognize why those might be pulling you apart. Now, I want to give you a real life example of a client couple who I've coached that graduated recently from my coaching program. And that way it should become more real to you. But I feel like with all of your, Rachel, I didn't even think about that. Rachel's last name is Jones. That's hilarious. So I do want to share with you the story of Leah and Dan. They have done amazing in the coaching process. They have really they've even brought up my confidence in what coaching does for a couple, especially when both coach. I mean, I've seen so many examples when I'm coaching just the wives of how successful they have been in getting their husband on board and in still doing things with their money that they never thought they could do. But when both husband and wife decide to coach together, Leah and Dan just like hit it out of the park. And so I really want to share their story with you. They had a really happy marriage. Like coming into it, I could tell that they actually were pretty good at communicating with each other. I think they had done some counseling in the past, so they were on a good place there. They just hadn't figured out how to talk about money so much. So they did argue about money. They would even avoid the topic sometimes for quite a while, and then it got bad enough to where another argument would start. She's a spender, he's a saver, and she's a free spirit. She loves life, has lots of fun. He's a numbers nerd, and her lack of attention to the numbers in the past was really driving him crazy. As you can imagine, some of you have experienced that. And what really surprised me about them was they had done the Dave Ramsey Financial Peace class. Great class, by the way. I attribute Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace book, when it was just in book form. I learned this, decades ago. Aged myself, probably almost 20 years ago now. About 20 years ago now. So I love Dave Ramsey's stuff. I don't coach black and white like Dave Ramsey teaches, just so you know, because everybody's situation is different. Everybody has different goals, but the principles are solid and they can be used in a lot of situations. But even though they had done that, and she had actually even taught the Financial Peace class, it had not stuck for them. So, which, by the way, I'm curious, have any of you done any sort of courses for finances, or what have you learned in your adult life regarding finances? Like officially, like with an official course. Okay. If y'all will share it at some point, that'd be awesome if any of you have done any courses like that. I'm just curious kind of what your backgrounds are. So when they started getting into their, Sarah, let's see. Okay, yeah, I love that conversation. I'll catch up with it when I'm done. So kind of backtrack a little to their childhood. Leah grew up in a family with a pretty good income, with an understanding that if she wanted something that cost money, her parents loved her. She did feel like this was the way that they loved her, was that essentially she would get anything she asked for. They rarely ever told her no. But for Dan, the money was tight. He learned frugality at a very young age. So when he became an adult, he did not spend money easily, and he was still frugal. And then, as you can probably guess, their God-given natural tendencies from birth were that Leah was a spender and Dan was a saver. Jessica. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay. Yes, Molly, I love how you have self-educated yourself as well. Self-education goes a long way because you can start where you are and go from there. So Leah is actually a self-employed hairstylist. So those of you that have a business, you can relate to this. But that also meant alongside that, she did value status. She needed to, dress pretty for work. She needed to keep her hair and her clothes up to date, her color up to date in her hair. She needed to stay trendy. And so for her, that was more important to her than having savings in the bank. But then, of course, there's Dan, who wished they had a bunch of savings in the bank, and he didn't understand why she would rather spend that money on herself looking better instead of putting money in the bank. So you can see how these things clash. And then also with the fact that Leah's income was variable, she didn't have a regular salary coming in, partly because she had to learn how to do that in a regular way. And by the way, business owners, if you haven't learned to do that, that's okay. Know that there's hope, but know that there is a way to start to pay yourself a regular salary. So essentially, she was spending everything she made, and she never really knew. She couldn't tell Dan. Dan never knew if she would actually be paying their personal bank account or not. So you can imagine, even after 9 years of marriage, this was still a problem. They hadn't figured it out. It was a struggle for them. So what they started to realize as we started coaching was that each of them had a strength. Each of them had things that needed to be improved upon in themselves and in their spouse. And in their case, they were both willing to do the work. But again, I want to reiterate and encourage you, if it's just you right now, and if your spouse isn't on board with the Budget Mastery Bootcamp, what you can do is pray for your spouse, encourage your spouse, and if the time is right or when the time is right, you can challenge your spouse if they welcome that challenge. So be encouraged. Just you working on yourself will make a major difference in your marriage and your financial situation. Again, I've coached, I need to count them up. How many wives I've coached without the husbands, and just amazed at the progress they've made. So I do a 4-month coaching program. So when we started coaching Leah and Dan, they started realizing, oh, I'm not right and you're not wrong. And that was huge. That was huge in their marriage. Just that one little simple realization. And I hope that you're realizing that today too, that neither one of you is right, neither one of you is wrong. You've got to figure out how to mesh, how to come together, right? It turned out Dan actually valued generosity, and Leah's spending could be an incredible blessing to others. She loved giving. And that was actually a huge strength of her spending style. And I was surprised to see that Dan valued that as well, or valued the generosity. And that was an area where he was able to start to soften his heart toward that, right? To get rid of the hardened heart toward that and break down that wall a little bit and say, oh, okay, yeah, I can start to appreciate your spending. But Leah also understood she had to learn how to keep it in check, keep her spending in check, and set boundaries for herself. And as you can imagine, that's really where the budgeting came in, that they were both very clear on those boundaries. And then on the flip side of that, Leah realized Dan's frugality came in very handy when they wanted to save money for a house down payment, right? That's something that takes patience, takes time, takes consistency to save month after month for a down payment on a house. And he recognized that life was less fun if he was too frugal. And for the sake of their marriage, for the sake of their daughter and the memories that he wanted to make as a family, he had to learn to be okay with spending sometimes too. So he started realizing that Leah's spending actually brought a lot of joy to their lives when it was done within those boundaries. And she learned how to do that with boundaries. So that's just a little sneak peek into their story. I'll share more about that in the next couple days. But I hope that encourages you, that it challenges you to do the work so that you can begin to move toward being one in your marriage when it comes to the money stuff. Now, you are going to have a little bit of homework today. I've already pretty much shared it with you. A lot of you probably already have answers for it. I will post that in the Facebook group. And again, the more that you engage, the more that you comment doing the homework, commenting on the homework thread is going to get you bonus points for the drawing for the Budget Mastery Review. So be sure and do that. It's just going to be regarding your own tendencies. If you're a journaler, you might want to journal about some of these things. And obviously pray over it. And then it's regarding your spouse's tendencies. And then that fun question, I gave you $100 right now to spend, well, actually the first question is, if I gave you $100 right now, what would you do with it? And then that's going to tell you if they're a spender or a saver, right? So that's already interesting, which you probably already know that, but that's fun with your kids too. Because my oldest actually said he would save it. He's starting to save for a car. He's 10. He's starting to save for his car. So I have to encourage him to spend sometimes, but gaming bucks are very powerful for him too. So spender or saver, if I gave you $100, what would you do with it? And then if I gave you $100 right now that you had to spend, you can't save it this time, then that's going to tell you whether they value experiences or material things, status, security, that sort of thing. So that sums up day 1. And I hope you learned a lot. I hope you will celebrate a lot now knowing that the gifts and tendencies God has given you regarding money is a good thing as long as we keep it in check. We just have to learn how to do that, and that's an area of growth for each of us. I hope that you've learned more about yourself, that you're going to grow closer to your spouse with this, and also open up some incredible communication between the two of you. Share as you work on this, as you talk to your spouse about this. If you have some wins, share some #win, okay? #WIN. Let's hear those wins. I think it'll encourage everybody in the group, and I think it's going to help everyone to start to shift toward what God has for them in their financial stewardship. So I would love to see all the wins. Post multiple posts if you want to. #win. What's your win? Even just starting to recognize these things in your spouse and in yourself are huge, huge wins. It doesn't have to be the things that we feel are huge or that seem big to others. It's the little things, it's the little shifts like that are drawing us closer to the Lord, that we're growing in Him. So share those, okay? And remember, tomorrow, believe it or not, because today was so good and y'all are so amazing, but tomorrow is the most important day of the boot camp. We'll be talking about the number 1 secret to mastering your money. And it's not what you think. It's not budgeting, believe it or not. In fact, because so many miss this, along with what we talked about today, it's why budgeting doesn't work. And after today, it's not about your spouse changing, right? And it's not, well, I guarantee you it's not what you think. Let's leave it at that, okay? So you'll have to come back tomorrow to find out what it is, and it's also going to be fun to discuss. And by the way, this was great today. Yes, I'm going to post a thread, Sarah, as soon as I get off. I'll post an actual homework thread, but if you have a win to share before I get that posted, feel free to go ahead and do the #win and post that. Y'all have given me such good discussion today, and I think it'd be really fun if you can make tomorrow's live at the same time. If we could actually do it on Zoom, and if some of you would be willing and able to actually come off mute and talk at some point, it's really an exercise that if we can talk through, I think you're going to get more value from it than if I'm just reading your comments. I mean, we can still do it that way. I can still do your comments like this. Y'all have been amazing. But I think if we can actually have a few people talk, it will be even more powerful. So if you feel like you could be on Zoom tomorrow, and if you would be willing to actually talk, and now you don't have to. If you want to be on Zoom and stay on mute, that's fine. Maybe just share with me in the chat. You don't want to talk, so I won't call on you. But if you're willing to do Zoom, put Zoom in the comments. If you feel like that'd be fun, I'll still stream it on Facebook so that everybody in the group will see it. But I think getting some open discussion. Yay, Christine. All right, Zoom would be great. Okay, yay, Sarah. All right, y'all are so brave. I love it. Love it, love it. Okay, so I think that'll be really great tomorrow, and it's really going to help you do the work better. The other thing is, for the worksheet tomorrow that I will be giving you after the live, it will be a great way of opening up this discussion that we're going to talk about tomorrow with your spouse. So if you're not on the email list yet, then you need to get on there, because the worksheet will only be distributed through that email list. It's through my mentorship coaching program that I use, and so I can't share it publicly in a Facebook group, but I can share it on my email list. So you have to be on there to get that worksheet. I'm so excited y'all want to go on Zoom tomorrow. I will send that out and start to post a link in the group, so you'll have that for tomorrow. And then, of course, I'll still stream it here on Facebook. So, Christine, remind me. Christine keeps me in check here. Remind me to post the Zoom link and everything, and then also the email list in case anybody here has not registered for the emails. Okay, thank you all for being here today. Christine, you are on the emails, I believe, but I'll double check that. You'll see that it comes from Heather Oyness Financial Coaching. Okay, that's who it should show that it's coming from. That's the list. You might be on more than one list. I have a Penny Steward Mama list, and I have the Heather Oynes Financial Coaching list. So make sure it says it's from Heather Oynes Financial Coaching. Okay, thank you, ladies. Y'all were amazing, so amazing. Thank you for being here, for participating. I am praying for each of you. I'm praying for what God is going to do for you through this challenge and for your marriage. And I'll see you tomorrow for the #1 secret to mastering money that so many miss. And it's going to be so good on Zoom. All right, y'all have a fabulous day. Thanks for hanging with me so long. And I'll see you tomorrow.